Welcome to SME Support Ecosystems, one of the world's biggest research projects on understanding what works and what doesn't in the SME ecosystem space. My name is Jörg Zucki, and today I have the honor to be with Rick Ed, who has been involved in the support ecosystems for the longest of time, as you can judge by his Santa Claus gray-haired appearance. Rick, perhaps you can tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience and expertise in the SME support ecosystem space.
Thank you, Jörg. It's a great honor. Thank you. I've been in the small business space for probably 30 years because I had a college, and because it was a private college, we had to offer our students something you couldn't get at a university, and that was how to run a business. So we were not only running a business, but we were teaching people how to run a business.
And how did that form part of your transition into offering service support, business services support, mentoring, advisory services that you do today?
Well, when I sold the college, I had a wealth of expertise, and I had always wanted to be involved with an incubator, and I found myself all of a sudden in the South African environment where there are vast numbers of people who need support to help them to make their businesses succeed.
And what is, in your view, an effective SME support ecosystem? You've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of entrepreneurs. You've seen a lot of incubators, accelerators, mentors, enterprise development programs. What is, in your view, the hallmarks of something that works well?
It may be easier to talk about what doesn't work well, and this is definitely from my experience and also through my own faults and failings, is that I'm inclined to give people something structured. And so wherever I have been with organizations where structured programs are delivered. And I've become more acutely aware recently that entrepreneurs don't want something structured. They just need a particular question to be answered.
So you're almost saying don't force the entrepreneur in a particular path, but rather offer a tray of advisory or solutions.
Yes, absolutely. Because entrepreneurs, by their very nature, tend to be, what's the word? Going to cut me out here. Divergent thinkers, independent thinkers. They want what they want and what they need now.
Okay.
So an entrepreneur doesn't want the whole story. He just needs the snippet that's of relevance to him or her at this particular point.
You mentioned in some of our other meetings about the difference between an entrepreneur and a business. And I remember you saying that, if you look at the statistical numbers of people, only maybe a few percentile actually become entrepreneurs. The rest are actually self-employed or business people.
Correct. I would say if you took, and this is just my thumbs up, if you took 1,000 people, then 100 of those people would be naturally self-employed, would be naturally self-employed people. They would be small business owners. Yeah. And of those 100, perhaps only one would really be an entrepreneur, would exhibit those characteristically entrepreneurial traits.
So when you look at SME support ecosystems, infrastructure, websites that offer services, co-working spaces, whatever we want to define it, is there, because everybody's targeting entrepreneurs, but if we are saying that there's actually only a small number of entrepreneurs, are they misguided in what they're targeting? Should they not be targeting businesses, self-employment?
Yes, absolutely, because that's the mainstay of the economy. Entrepreneurs tend to go off at tangents, and those unicorn businesses, they're developed by entrepreneurs, they're not mainstream. The mainstream people are the small business owners, and they need help. They need to understand that if they're to have a successful business, they have to have a market. They have to have people who's going to buy their product. They don't just intuitively know this. There's so much for a small business owner to discover, to learn. They need to have a supportive ecosystem where they can be provided with the knowledge, expertise, support to help them to be successful.
Now here's an interesting point that stems out of your observation, which is that they don't know what they don't know.
Correct.
I mean, obviously there are first-timers and there are recurring or serial ones. How do we, is this tray approach of bringing all services and knowledge and let them cherry pick it, is that the way to raise awareness? How do we bring about or institutionalize the education that a business owner might need, in your experience?
Well, there is this notion of the mentor.
Yeah.
It's become formalized recently, but there always were mentors. There was always a grandfather or an aunt or somebody that you would go to and get advice. That person often knows and sees things that you as a small business owner are not aware of. And in the past, we would just automatically ask them for advice. We would be growing up at their feet, and we would discover these things. But nowadays, we need to go and find somebody who has that wisdom, that expertise, and ask them what we're missing. And these are the people who will show us what we haven't seen, what would we say, what was the term you used? What we don't know, what we don't know. Yeah.
If you inherently are actually saying, how do we map all the knowledge that is out there? Is, in your experience, and we're talking about businesses rather than the statistically small sample of entrepreneurs, but in terms of self-employed and business owners and businesses, can the knowledge be structured, or is there enough evidence to show that actually all the businesses follow roughly the same guidelines, rules, be it cash flow management, hiring, and etc.? Are we in a position to be able to map all the knowledge around entrepreneurship and business?
Yes, I think we can do that as long as we're not delivering it in a linear format, so that a person is obliged to discover, to be exposed to all of the necessary information. So if I want to know about tax, don't tell me everything about tax. I just want to know the aspect of tax that impacts on me and my business right now.
So let's say you were in charge of developing the support ecosystem for small businesses and entrepreneurs in the Johannesburg city, and you were given unlimited budget, how would that perfect SME support ecosystem look like? What would you do?
Well, again, we come back to Noam Chomsky, you don't know what you don't know. So unfortunately, when you ask entrepreneurs, they're going to tell you, or let's say, use the correct term, when you ask small business owners, they're going to tell you what they've heard. They're going to tell you they need access to market, they need access to finance. So in fact, you need to talk to people who've done a bit of research, who've been down the road, who've got a better understanding of what entrepreneurs really need. And you can then package it in a variety of formats, because different types of small business owners need the information in different formats. It may be that it's not convenient for somebody in a rural area to get the information in English, or in a digital format, or online.
I see your point. And it's actually a very interesting one, because that's this one-size-fits-all, shoving it down everybody's throat approach kind of that you advocate against.
Yes.
And like when you've been around the block, as your grey hair lends testimony to, I apologize that, we should really edit this in. But you've been around the block and seen a lot of enterprise development incubators, accelerators, mentors, business advisors and coaches and what have you not. What are some of the biggest frustrations that you've observed, and I'm putting you on the spot because you might insult a few people, in your travels, in your experiences? So not about the entrepreneurs now or the businesses themselves.
We have a particular challenge in South Africa in that we have an extremely high unemployment rate. We have vast numbers of people who are not employable. We have people who have qualified, who have qualifications. We have people who are graduates who cannot be employed. And we have a particular variation on the ESD system, the Enterprise and Supplier Development System, which is intended to remedy the challenge of large numbers of black people who would be in business if they could, if they had the expertise, but because of apartheid and the laws and regulations, there is no history of business expertise, let alone people owning businesses. So enterprise and supplier development incubators are essential, but unfortunately, because of the way that it has been implemented, the facilitators, the the enablers, but also the organizations and the that terrible word, the
funding sponsors,
the people who give advice, the
advisors, mentors,
advisors,
coaches.
mentors. One that starts with a C,
coaches.
Another one, one that got such a bad name 10 years ago.
We'll come back to that.
Okay, all right. So those people, the consultants, the advisors, the trainers, the facilitators, the organizations, frequently a large proportion of these people are not competent, do not have the expertise. There is no structured regulatory system. Corporations need to get their scorecard points. And so we are ticking boxes and we're pushing people through these programs, and they are jumping from incubator to incubator. They're jumping from ESD program to ESD program, and nobody but the organization and trainers, and I've been one of those trainers, nobody scores. And we are doing the country and our people a massive disservice.
It's a very valid point on that. There is no measurement of what goes in and what comes out.
No.
Is that something that, objectively speaking, we could actually fix? Like, how would we go about measuring?
No, absolutely we can fix it. And fortunately, some of the people in the system are entrepreneurs and they're fixing it for themselves. We can learn from people like that. Somebody who's on a generic program discovers that there is a targeted program, and he leaves this program, or he or she goes to the targeted program and finds and selects only from that program what they need to learn. And they're not after the certificate, they're not after the jobs that they're going to be given, they are just there to get the value from that program. We can analyze what the needs of people are, not asking them what they are because you don't know what you don't know, and we can structure something that makes the knowledge and expertise accessible to the people who need it. It is possible to do that.
Do you find in your experience and in your work that there's a conflict between what the organization's outcome, if it's ESD spend and so forth, and those running it, versus what the entrepreneurs and SMEs who attend these programs or are guests of this SME support ecosystem? Is there a big mismatch in your experience?
Yes. Obviously, it's a gross generalization for me to say that there is, because there are incubators that do excellent work. There are consultants, there are trainers, there are ESDs that do excellent work, but the SMEs out there, to a large extent, are very disenchanted with the system as it exists.
What is, in your view, if we talk about disenchantment, what is the biggest frustration sitting on the mind of an SME with the less stellar service providers?
Yes. Many of them feel that they've been taken for a ride. What the institution, the provider is offering hasn't been made clear to them. So, for example, a bank will contract an enterprise development organization to put their people in their supply chain through a program. That organization will prepare a program and invite people to attend sessions. But they won't tell the people what the outcomes are or how they've developed the program. They won't ask the people, the participants, what they need from the program.
I see, but I want to talk a little bit on the positive side. You say there are some excellent incubators,
Yes.
mentors, and so forth. What have they done right, in your view? You might even include yourself.
Well, I hope so, but yeah, I'm part of the system, so I'm often at fault as well. But those people who, oddly enough, their heart is in the right place, will make sure that they understand what the need is. Like a good business person, they will answer the need of the customer, and they will give the customer what the customer needs, not necessarily what the customer wants. So they will establish what their market needs, the small businesses that are being trained and incubated, and they will work with them so that those people get the expertise and knowledge that they require.
That is a phenomenal point I want to pick up on, if I may. Giving what the customer, the small business or the entrepreneur needs, not necessarily what they want. Can you unpack that a bit more?
In business, we know what people need, but we sell them what we want them to. In business, we know what people need, but we sell them what they want. So we know that they don't need fast food, but we know that they want fast food. In the case of enterprise development and incubators, what the participant in the program, often called a beneficiary, what that person wants is, because they're not an entrepreneur, because they don't have the skill in the context in which the learning is being imparted, they are not always aware of what their needs are. So, for example, when people say, I need access to finance, I need access to market, instead of actually needing access to finance, they need to know how to find customers, they need to know how to sell to customers, and that's how they will get the finance.
Absolutely. That is such a crucial point, and I think that comes also with this hope of, I want to raise 100 million to start my business.
Yes.
This also setting yourself up for failure, kind of. I'd love to understand some of the bigger or some of the misconceptions around the work that you do. And I don't mean only specifically you, but in this putting you in the category of SME support structures. What are some of the misconceptions by businesses, SMEs, by entrepreneurs, and maybe by organizations wanting to support this? What can you do and what can you not do?
Can I better understand your question? So are we talking about consultants, trainers, mentors?
I suppose, let's say there's a high unemployment rate in the Eastern Cape.
Yes.
Or there's a specific challenge with township businesses around the South African provinces, which are kind of excluded from a more formalized economy. Often, the organizations funding the initiatives to solve or tackle these challenges think that by throwing a lot of money, by sending Rick into the program, we can solve everything overnight. What are the limitations to what a support ecosystem can do? And where do you think, or is in your experience, do we draw the line, how far they can go?
All right, yes, I think that's a very valid question. So if we take an example, recently CEDA had they held a Global Entrepreneurship Week event in Galashiwe in the Northern Cape, and the unemployment rate, the poverty rate is exceptionally high. People don't have much of an expectation of success, and because we're living in poverty and we're living in unemployment, the context that we're living in doesn't provide us with many examples of successful businesses. So by coming down from Pretoria and running an event like that, we sometimes create more disappointment, because we rush in, we do a presentation, and we leave. And the people have no idea how to take their context and turn it into opportunities.
That is very, very powerful, and I think it's exactly right. Those are my observations around information versus knowledge. What do you do tomorrow morning with that? You talked about that a lot of initiatives, especially in the South African context, are not measured.
Yes.
And we talked about also in terms of the impact created. There's a lot of money. If we look at the kind of money that are invested into supporting SMEs and entrepreneurs, one could argue it's ridiculous. Why are we still a struggling economy? Why are SMEs not thriving with allegedly so much money being available to support them? Not necessarily fund them.
Here I'm talking from absolute ignorance, and I absolutely have no idea whatsoever. And I could be tempted to think of this as some kind of conspiracy theory, because there is no excuse for this. If we look at what's happening in countries like Rwanda, in Kenya, and of course they are not all wonderful examples of great success, but there are definitely successes that they're having that we could have had. They didn't have references to refer to. We do. And we are not implementing systems, programs that can uplift people, that can create jobs. There is knowledge out there, there is information out there that we are not adapting. We have small programs like Yes for Youth, but it's very small. It's more to do with helping people to find work opportunities for a year and hopefully to get employed. It's too small. We need something on a far grander scale where we go back and look at our education system, which is still appalling. And I love the word criminal, because I believe that it's a kind of genocide. We are condemning our population in South Africa to perpetual poverty. That is something that can be fixed. We can fix our education system. Why are we not doing so?
And that education system includes understanding how to set up, run, and grow a business.
Well, even if you go back to junior school, primary school level, if we teach students, learners, to ask questions, to query, to wonder if things can't be different, why are they so, then they will automatically be better prepared when they get into secondary school, so that they can already be entrepreneurial in their mindset, in the way, or in their approach to life. So they can be better prepared for what we're already in the fourth industrial revolution, because it's here and we need people to be able to think like that. We're not bothering to do that in primary school. If we were, by the time they were in high school, they would already be starting businesses.
That's a very, very powerful point, and I think I'd like to kind of end on the note that you've actually done some work in the space with bringing into the market ideas like your board game.
Yes.
What was the driver behind that?
It was very simple. If we go back to people needing access to market and access to finance, Once they understand that by satisfying the needs of customers, they will be able to sell their product to people, they then need to be able to manage that finance. They need to know whether or not their business is sustainable or profitable. And once they've been able to establish that, they will know whether or not they can grow their business, assuming they would like to. And then if they want to grow their business, they'll want to be raising finance. They will be wanting to be going to venture capitalist banks, government agencies, and those people will want the small business owner to be able to demonstrate that they know, they understand how to manage their finances, that financial literacy. And my frustration was that I couldn't find a tool that was ideal as a fun way, as a non-threatening way for people to learn how to manage their finances. And that's how I came to develop this board game.
Brilliant, and we'll put the link to the game on just below the video. Rick, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for watching.
York, that has been a great honor. Thank you very much for inviting me. I
Thank you.
really appreciate it.
Thank you.